This is going to be a very special edition of the Dead Files, because rumour has it that the man we will feature today is genuinely, legitimately still alive. Is that possible? Everyone says no, but there might be a little hope. So, while we like to show you silly little mistakes that get people killed, today we'll cover something special. Here is how, as far as our scientists can tell, being that they completely lack monitoring equipment, one man is still alive and still human in the Muldraugh infection zone. I knew it was worth getting up this morning. Let's take a look. Dead but alive 6. Nolan Hodges. Nolan came to the attention of the Dead Files team rather late. Somehow he had escaped the notice of however we're getting these reports, don't worry about that. He suddenly showed up for all to see when he crashed his car in the dead of night right outside the property of Dead 3 Ashley. Where did he come from? We sadly will never know. His natural ability to survive might suggest he was from a town with less lead in the drinking water. There is even a rumour, a tiny little rumour you might have heard, that sometimes the powers that be, whoever they are, take people from outside the infection zone, drug them and drop them off on the inside in order to achieve, well, the conspiracies will say anything. Somehow, Nolan stepped into Ashley's house. This was several days after Ashley had gone feral, and the newly monsterized version of our noble dead started coming downstairs to greet the visitor. Nolan was caught completely off guard for 2 reasons. Firstly, because the kitchen had been almost burnt down by the machinations of the cursed microwave that mocks you for your crimes, the smell of ash concealed the smell of ash. Wonderful. Secondly, Nolan was almost deaf, hence a beast lurching awkwardly down the stairs actually managed to escape his notice. Nolan turned round and was face to face with a zombie, naked but for a cleanly folded newspaper hat. There was a moment of hesitation. Was Nolan's adventure at an end? Nay, for he had learned a thing or two on his way here, I imagine. He was wielding a broom handle with one end sharpened like a spear, which he immediately thrust into Ash's chest, pushing the beast away. Nolan looked the creature on his skewer up and down, then repeated the thrusting until the body of the house's prior owner was still amid the sea of packets and bottles littering the floor. Nolan seems to be rather distraught at this. Some say that he knew Ashley and came here in a hurry to rescue him, arriving tragically too late. But that isn't true. Why? Oh, it's because that's just not the sort of thing that happens. No, every time you kill someone, it will probably be someone you actually wanted to kill anyway. Don't worry about any scenarios where your loved ones turn into monsters and you're forced to fight them to the death in a confusing, emotional clash of realities. Because if you really were worried about that, you'd probably just end it all now, since it's so likely. So it's a good thing that none of that is real at all. Nolan searched around the house and saw the various stocks Ashley had created during his decent try at staying alive, especially all the books and magazines neatly categorized and marked with numbers, supposedly representing the order in which Ash was going to read them. Nolan sat there crying and moaning about something or other. Then he discovered a loose sheet of paper tucked in among the books. It was crisp and clean, like the paper used at large corporations, or dare one say it, large military scientific institutions. On it was written, "Recovery team did not disturb the book collection during sample retrieval as per director's note. Please use surveillance footage to determine what information was available to the subject at time of death." Why had Ash written such a strange note to himself? These are the kinds of mysteries that will never, ever be solved, and our recommendation here at the Dead Files is that if you find such abnormalities in your survival experience, please disregard them. You've got better things to worry about. Nolan, being an out-of-touch old fellow, thought it was simply some nonsense from some comicade literature and left it be. He was more inspired by the methods young Ash had been employing. Yes, the destruction of nearby fences and collection of usable wood indicated a little gumption that Nolan was quick to take up. And this is what we need to learn also. Nolan made claim of the house next door, being that Ash's home seems to have certain negative associations, and inside he began collecting furniture to use for the purpose of fortification. Yes, fortification! We've come a long way without mentioning this. You have probably been thinking you could lock yourself in a cupboard boarded up so strongly that no mere human hand could scratch its way in, and hence you'd be safe. I mean, you would be describing a coffin, but otherwise I applaud your gusto. Nolan had something more ambitious in mind, in that he was vaguely aware he could fence off his new house and then remain undetected as long as he wished. Here were the hurdles he had to overcome to achieve this sensible dream. 1. Collect things from which he could make a fence. 2. Learn how to make a fence. 3. Be alive long enough to carry out stages 1 and 2, which brought on step 4. Try to make a living scavenging edible material from the woods. Yes, Nolan was lucky in that the whole street backed onto the thick forest that graced Muldraugh's southern reaches, so by simply moving a few planks aside in the existing rear fence, he could slip into the bounteous breadbasket of nature. Did I say bread? I meant, well, bark. Can't eat that? How about grass? No? Plenty of old leaves and rotten wood here? Still not overcome by rivers of drool? Here's where a lot of you are going to get into trouble, I fear, so it's important we cover this topic. The topic in which most of the things in the world cannot be eaten, and some things that can contain things that themselves will eat you. It's eat and be eaten out there. Nolan was lucky enough that there was a lot of fungus in these woods, but his luck would need to hold yet, since as you likely know, fungus that hasn't been eaten by something already might just have something wrong with it. For example, it may kill you instantly. Oh, ho-hum, everything kills you instantly these days, so that's hardly a problem now, is it? When it comes down to it, you either survive eating them and get to live on, or you die and don't have to worry about such things anymore. With the right mindset, you really can't lose with a mysterious woodland mushroom. Nolan fried up such forage in his new kitchen, covered it in ketchup, and ate it without immediately dying. A round of applause, please. He did it. He won the bet. You see, if you're willing to risk your life on fungal food, you don't have to risk your life looking for human food in places where all the monsters are. Also looking for human food in a different sense. So, pick your poison and pick it well, and if you die, then remember that life is all sour grapes anyway. Yep, very positive advice, I think that is. So, with his method of long-term survival beginning to materialize, Nolan started raiding the nearby houses for furniture to use in his new fence. Recall that our previous heroes had ensured these houses were already safe enough to venture into. Indeed, that is an important lesson unto itself. The way to get the most reward for the least risk is to let someone else take the risk, and if they die because of it, that's great. Now you don't have to share the reward. This principle is the bedrock of human civilization, so try to use it if you can. Stand on the shoulders of giants, and if those shoulders try to shake you off, give them a good whacking first. Nolan fell neatly into his new rhythm of life, looting what he could, foraging for anything intriguingly slimy or rubbery that might go well with ketchup, and only having to beat the occasional interloper to death. For many in Muldraugh, that's just how things have always been. There was one issue he was about to run into, however. One lunchtime, Nolan was standing at his stove, scattering pieces of wild basil over his latest fungal salad. Satisfied he had procured everything the body needs for his latest survivalist feast, he switched on the hob to get it cooking. He waited. He waited. Didn't it usually start giving off some steam by now? He waited some more. He would have known the problem already, but because of his hard hearing, he couldn't hear that the hum of the fridge had long since turned off. He went for the light switch. Nope. Oh, Nolan, did you think electricity was going to be part of the deal forever? That's the kind of mistake a dead would make. But you aren't a dead, are you, Nolan? Please don't be a dead this time, Nolan. Yes, the power was out across the whole infection zone, the whole state, some say. I imagine that won't be getting any worse. So how does one live in this situation? It's time to recall ancient ancestral memories. How did we humans get by without electricity anyway? We had something else, didn't we? We used to do something all the time. What was it? We used to set things on fire. Yes, now that's a spark in the dark, eh? The lesson we must impart to you here, if you still have the power to hear it, is that most of your daily needs can actually be powered by an engine as old as our species, the great energy hidden inside all things that can be released amid the all-consuming spectral darts of a sweet flame. Nolan jumped to work immediately, knowing that mastering this as soon as possible was a matter of life and death. Two great options, as I said, so don't worry if you don't end up getting the one you were gunning for when the time comes. First, Nolan rolled over the barbecue from Ash's house and set it up on his rear patio. Getting something to burn was easy. His life already revolved around the woods, and what are the woods made of? That's right, wood. So that was hardly going to be an issue here. It's strange that all life forms don't make fires, considering how easy finding fuel is, eh? Wait, is there some incredibly difficult step that took humanity 100,000 years to overcome? Yes, there is. Ignition. A fire, you see, is a chemical reaction that requires a certain amount of work to activate, work that only humans have ever been able to achieve. When the lights go dim, you'll have about a day to learn what our species did over endless dark millennia of the eras lost to history. I do hope you're as clever as you look. Nolan certainly was. He had never started a fire himself, but he recalled seeing how to do it on television. Listen closely as I tell you these steps. First, he took a plank of wood and drilled a hole close to the edge. I advise you procure planks and drills from the ruins of civilization. Not that it's ruined, otherwise it really will take you 100,000 years just to achieve this first stage. And that's the fast bit. Now, shave a stick down to roughly fit into the hole you've made. Take the shavings and other thin pieces of fuel, such as grass, and bunch them around the hole, underneath the hole, and maybe even in the hole for good measure. Then, your shaven stick must be inserted into the hole and rotated with such a force of acceleration that the whole assembly begins to catch fire. Easy as that. Have fun. Nolan's lunch drifted and became dinner, then supper, then a midnight snack, and still hardly a spark had been created via his television survivalist method. Maybe the host cheated to make it go faster for the cameras. I'm sure they don't do that. No one has ever lied on television, and that's a Dead Files guarantee. Nolan was forced to dip into the winter stores of canned goods he'd started amassing. Did I forget to mention you should be storing food for winter? Oh, don't worry about it. Cross that bridge if you come to it. But he wasn't defeated yet. He returned the next day, a horrid stir-fry in one hand and an industrious shaved stick in the other. Mankind would invent fire again, and it would happen on this very patio. Nolan's hands jabbed side by side as he spanned the stick back and forth with equal parts concentration and fury. If a zombie had come by, he probably wouldn't have noticed, and this process makes enough noise that this is a real possibility. But luck was on Nolan's side as ever. After only half an hour of exhausting work, the grass, twigs, and shavings began to smoke. Blowing on the burgeoning flame helps enliven it, which activates the reaction in more of the fuel, and soon the burn is visible. Nolan remembered all this and executed the process with silent determination. Once he had a load of burning twigs, he transferred them to the piles of newspaper and scrap wood in the barbecue. The smoke thickened. The air began to dance in the heat. A fire was born, and within minutes there were licks of orange energy lapping against the rim of Nolan's frying pan. Who needs electricity? Not Nolan, and not you. All the effort involved made the ensuing plate of pan-seared mushrooms the most glorious meal of Nolan's life. He stepped away from his victory, confident that all he had to do now was do that again, every day, more than once per day ideally. Ah, there's the problem. How was he going to find the time to make a fence when all his daily efforts had to go into collecting and cooking food, and all the wood for the fence was better used as fuel? Well, we don't have an answer either for you or Nolan here, but I say we all give him a big cheer, and really hope he discovers a way to make this work, for all our sakes. Come on, Nolan, don't be caught dead acting like a dead. I'm just being told the water supply has been cut off in the infection zone as well. I'm sure Nolan and his fellow not quite deads relish the challenge. He'll work it out. We'll check back in with Nolan another time because we have other information coming in from other fantastic deads with plenty to teach us about how not to behave closer to the outbreak of the crisis. Not that there's an outbreak, not that there's a crisis, not that there's any hope whatsoever. Try and watch the Dead Files next time then. I bet even one page of an outdoor survival guide's worth its weight in gold. I think I'd rather. Feel so inefficient teaching everyone this when 1 in 1,000 or less will get even 5 minutes past the first infection. Reassuring though, isn't it? To know you won't have to go through all this. Easier to accept the end when you know you didn't do anything wrong to cause it. But whoever did cause this is still out there. Might even be in the room with me right bloody now.